Welcome to the Indie Author Spotlight, where we interview indie authors about upcoming releases as well as life as an author, presented to you by Books, Brews, and Dogs. You can visit booksbrewsanddogs.com, purchase a blind date with a book, and support animal rescue efforts. Books, Brews, and Dogs is where you can buy a book and save a dog or a cat.
So welcome, everybody. We're here with Hayley Snyder for the Indie Author Spotlight presented by Books, Brews, and Dogs. I have this beautiful background behind me because otherwise all you see is a closet. So um, we're getting stuff situated at my grandma's house, but we are here to talk about Hayley and Hayley's poems. So I'm pretty excited about this. I did read one of your poetry books that's out. You have two out, correct?
I have three out.
Three. Oh,
Mhm.
I missed one.
It's okay.
So, what I loved about it is it reminded me of an adult version of Shel Silverstein poems. That's what it felt like to me. So I loved Shel Silverstein as a kid. And your poems really kind of ring with that like life experience, but definitely more adult than the Shel Silverstein ones.
I
So,
definitely have to check them out. I've never heard of that poet before.
oh, yeah, I'll send you some stuff on it. He does like where the sidewalk ends,
Mhm.
and stuff. It's just really, this is that part where you know the thing, but you're trying to
Mhm.
find it, so you can't say it.
Right.
But he does Where the Sidewalk Ends, which was one of my favorite books as a kid. So have always loved I have always loved poetry. I can't talk today. Um, and yours is very raw and very real. So what is it that inspires you?
So I first started writing back in I'm 29 turning 30 this year. I started writing back in middle school. It was when Taylor Swift first came out. I'm a huge Swiftie, and it was Teardrops on My Guitar, and that hit my tiny little, middle school soul. And just listening to how she put her feelings into songs, I was like, well, shit, I can do that too. And I started writing songs and coming up with music, and then I realized I can't sing. So I kind of stopped with that and would just occasionally write and things like that. And then I started reading poetry and Sylvia Plath and Emily Dickinson, and I was like, wait, songs are basically poems. So let me turn these songs that I've written about my life for the past, 10 years into a book. And that was, I think, back in 2021. And I've always loved fantasy, as we can tell from all the books behind me, and Disney and the princesses and everything like that. So I kind of started doing kind of like a fantasy theming with my poetry, but kind of related back towards myself, if that makes sense.
It really does. Give me 1 second. My dog's barking. I think
Oh,
someone's at the
no.
door. Sorry. The mailman got dropped off.
Honestly, how dare he bring mail?
I know. How dare he? He's, he's saving us from the mailman. Murphy, Guile, come here. He's like, no, no. There's someone here, Mom. You didn't come all the
I
way.
need to fight this person.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So, um, I'm trying to find the one. I should have bookmarked it, but I was like, no, I'll find it again. And we all know how that works every time.
I do that all the time because I made a separate Instagram account for my poetry. So with my book account, I just post like pretty book photos and then I'll post poetry on a separate account. And I'll do that in my brain where I'm like, I need to post this today. And then I'll be going through my books and I'm like, where is this freaking poem at? And I'm like, no, it's in this section. And then I can't find it. And I was like, no, I put it in here. And then I just keep going back and forth, back and forth.
Okay, so there's this one, um, and I don't know why it didn't necessarily like speak to my soul or anything like that, this particular one, but I just really liked it. Um, or this verse of one. So I'm reading everything on Kindle on my phone, and so the formatting seems like it's a little off because sometimes it skips.
Hmm.
Like there will be a big empty space. I'll have one line and then the rest of the poems on the next page. Um, so but there's this one right here. Is it it is okay if I read this?
Sure, go for it.
Um, if you're going to sacrifice my heart, do it fast, so I don't feel any pain. If you're going to hurt me, just be swift with your angelic blade. And I don't know, I just really liked that because I, I'm not entirely sure why, but I do like that it's like, we have all felt pain and we've all just been like, can we just get this over with already? And
Right.
so maybe a little bit, it spoke a little bit to that, but there wasn't any like memory or profound thing that made it just, that one had really stuck with me.
That one's it's one of my favorites from that book because every time I've had a lot of relationships and sometimes when how I feel where I'm like, if you're just gonna break my heart, let's just get it over with now. So, let's not keep it going. Like if you're gonna do it, like just do it now. And that's kind of how I was feeling writing that part because with that book, I just kind of went through it was a smorgasbord of just memories basically where I talked about losing my brother.
Mhm.
Um, I talk about a little bit in that book a emotionally abusive relationship I was in, my high school boyfriend, depression, and then like finding myself in that book. So with that part, I was just kind of thinking about like all the guys that I've, dated or, talked to, because, no one dates anymore. It's just situationships. And with that part, I've just, because that's just how I am as a person, where I'm like, this is what I want. And if you don't want this, let's just, you know, bring out your angelic blade. Let's just get it over with.
Mhm. Yeah. So, well, it makes a lot of sense what you said, all the things you were kind of going through during this book, because it was very much a lot of lived life experiences. There was a lot of deeper, darker emotions that came through in it. And so the book we're talking about right now is Hayley's book, The Princess Who Became a Phoenix.
Yeah.
So that's the one that poem was out of. And this is this is the one I read. The other one's in my Amazon cart. I haven't had a chance to get it yet. But I really love the poems because they're very raw, they're very real, and they're straightforward. And so you really can get a sense of kind of what you were going through. And they really do speak to just the human experience in general. And
Mm.
that's kind of, I mean, that's what poetry is supposed to do. It's supposed to be a way of expressing ourselves through word. And you do a beautiful job of that, but it's also just very raw, so it doesn't feel, it's not like a Robert Frost poem where it feels very, in line and the parameters are, meet this specifics. And the these aren't poems you're going to learn in school, but they're poems that are going to speak to your personal experience, I guess,
Correct.
trying to say.
And When I first started to get into poetry, because I've always loved reading and poems and stuff like that, and the way I write, I didn't want it to be kind of like, an AP Lit and you learn, you do the verse and then you do this and then you do that, where I just wanted to kind of just word vomit it onto the page where I can say how I feel, but also interpret it to something that everyone can relate to, where it's not just something specific for me, where they look at that poem and they're like, holy shit, I feel the same way.
Yeah. And
Without
then,
having to be like, I don't understand any of this. Which I feel like happens sometimes with poems, because that I would argue with my AP Lit teacher in high school because she's like, well, this is what the poet is saying. I'm like, I don't think so. Like, not in my opinion. She's like, well, actually, I'm like, they're dead. You don't know that. So
yeah,
that's why with
it's
these, I'm
hard
like,
because everything is different and everybody's experience is different. And so, you know, just look, I mean, look at religion.
mhm,
We're not going to go too deep into religion, but just as the example, there are how many different variations of Christianity in the world, and they all read the same book.
right.
But we get the variation because everybody interprets it a little differently. And so once the art is out there, you have what it meant to you while you were writing it, but you can't tell somebody else what it means to them anymore
Right.
because that's now up to them. And I think that's especially true of poetry and songs because those those forms of art are meant to speak to our personal experiences and to get our emotions going and stirred up and thinking and feeling.
Hmm.
So it's going to be different to everybody, at least just a little bit.
Right.
Um, and all those nuances. So that it's always really, that's one thing in school that I'm like, no,
Yeah, I was like, you're wrong, and this is why.
because when you're judged on can you comprehend the poem and what they're trying to say, you're being judged on what that teacher's telling you it says and
Mhm.
how it speaks to you. But that's not what poetry is meant for. Um, it's meant for it to speak to you and you interpret it into what it makes you feel. And um, so I picked another one um, that I want to read if you're okay with that. Okay. So I'm sorry I'm damaged. Loving me is like being on a roller coaster. I'm sorry you saw how I can really be. I shouldn't have shown you. You wouldn't have run away. I'm sorry I jumped when you weren't ready. I'm sorry I'm needy. We need to stop saying sorry. And I like this one a lot too because as not only as a neurodivergent person, but as a woman, we're often taught be small, be apologize. You have to fit in, you have to fit in, you have to fit in. And at the end, when you're like, we need to stop saying sorry, it just really feels like we're saying, like you're saying, stop apologizing for who you are and allow yourself to be you.
That's exactly how I meant in it too, because in relationships or, in the talking stages, I would go full force into it when I first started dating and stuff like that. And then I would, over text or stuff like that. And then I would be saying, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry to bug you. Like, because I would feel that back on myself where I felt I was being needy to this person, or just in general, where sometimes I feel like I can come off strong and I have a direct personality, and I just kind of felt like, maybe I should don't do that, or just be quiet and don't say your opinions. And then, I kind of just felt like, why am I keep saying, especially like you said, as a woman, like, why do I need to apologize? This is how I am, and whoever I'm around will accept that.
Yeah, and it's a struggle that I think a lot of us face because, we're always told like there are times where like my mom told me I needed to quit my job and get a job that paid less money because I was currently making more money than my husband. And I'm like, why should I have to?
Yeah.
Like, no, she's like, well, you're gonna emasculate him. I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. I'm like,
Hmm.
it's a partnership. And when I told my husband what my mom said, he laughed. He goes, please make me a house husband. I'd love that. Um, but it it's those statements and those comments that we hear all the time and things like that are said to us that, you know, people just don't think about. Like my mom didn't even think, and I'm like, you really told me to belittle myself to
Right.
make a person, somebody else feel better
Hmm.
without a, like, why would you tell somebody to do that? And um we're told things like that constantly. If you're too loud or if you say what you want and tell people the things that you want, they're gonna think you're needy and you're disrespectful. And so you just need to keep it to yourself. And it's like, but then how do I accomplish those things if I don't ever put myself out there? And um, you see your growth through this book where you're starting off, like if you're gonna put me through pain, just rip the band-aid off. Like, let's get it over with because this is what I'm used to experiencing, to the, that I I keep having to apologize for just being me and I want to let go, to, and I'm gonna read some more. So this is closer to the end of the book, but we're still pretty much in the middle. And it's saying, releasing myself into the flames, feeling the heat, burning my sins, burning the old me. And then on the next page, it says, I rolled around in pain as the flames engulfed my monsters, destroying the princess. Flashbacks of memories danced in my mind. Out of the ashes came the phoenix, my hero's journey. And this one really kind of expresses that inner turmoil that we have to go through before we learn to just tell everyone to F off. You know, I don't know if I can say that on YouTube or not, so I'm just being safe.
Oh, I've cursed a few times, so I hope so.
I'm like, I, I generally cuss a lot, but the rules keep change, like rules and what you can say and what you can't change. And if I forget to do a certain setting, I can get in trouble. So I just have been trying really hard not to cuss.
You can make it PG.
It's really hard because I cuss a lot. Um,
I I feel
but um, you really see kind of that growth of learning to accept yourself for who you are, which is something that everyone has to go through. Whether you're male, female, transgender, non-binary, it doesn't matter. We all have to learn and go through different experiences that, kind of put us through pain until we really learn who we are and what we're okay with and what we're not okay with. And as you read through the poems in this book, you really see that progression and feel that come out, where you're coming out the other side and realizing it's okay to be who you are. And so it's a really fun poetry book to read. You can read it really quickly because it is a poetry book. So poetry books are always a little bit faster to read than a
Mhm.
novel. But you can also sit what I did is I kind of, read one or two pages and then sat with it for a day or two, and then read one or two pages and sat with it for a day or two, which I really like because your poetry really does give you things to think about, in that experience, and kind of how does that relate? How did that make me feel? And you can really, um, the way that I used it is I used it to kind of help delve into some of my own experiences and like where did I want to grow from? Where was I causing myself pain and
Mhm.
things like that? And kind of used it almost as a journaling.
Oh, nice.
You could turn it into a journal, like
That's
a
actually a good idea.
journal prompt. Where you use some of the lines from your poems to kind of,
Mhm.
or you put the poem and say, how does this relate to you? Anyways,
Right. That's a good idea.
you can think about that later. We'll talk about it later. But that's kind of what I did with it because it works really well for that,
Mhm.
and really getting you thinking. And that's where I remember doing that with the Shel Silverstein poems and Where the Sidewalk Ends, because he kind of talked about life experiences in an abstract way. And so I had that book when I was younger, and these really reminded me of an adult version of that style.
Thank you.
So it pulled me back into my childhood a little bit with the way that it's written, and so that was a lot of fun.
And I kind of, with this book, kind of went with the hero's journey concept of it, because with the hero's journey, you just kind of start low and then it builds and builds, and then you see the hero just kind of get stuck, things happen, they can't move on, and then something happens, and then they become that hero. And that's kind of how I felt. I felt like my whole life has just been this hero's journey, basically. Like I lost my brother at 6, on my birthday, exactly on my birthday. And that just slowly affected me as a child and gave me anxiety and PTSD and things like that. So I had to deal with losing a sibling, now having these, mental illnesses that everyone has and that it's normal to have. But at the time, I did not know that. And I just thought something's wrong with me. And then, wanting to be loved by people that did not deserve my love, and having to go through that journey of life and accepting myself and who I am and, what has happened to me, and realizing that every bad thing that has happened to me has led to this moment of burning myself in the flames and becoming a new version of myself. And I think as humans, we are just constantly burning ourselves and becoming new people. I always say to my boyfriend, I'm like, who I was last year is a completely different person than who I am today. And who I am today is going to be a completely different person than who I am in 5 years from now. And I think with this book, like you said, you just see this journey that I am on and this growth. And it took, I think I wrote on the back, like it took 25 years in the making kind
Yeah.
of thing, because that's how long my journey's been. Like you can't fix yourself in one day, and you don't have to fix yourself. It's you, have growth, and you recognize that this is me, this is who I am, this is how I can improve myself and accept who I am as a person.
Yeah, and you're right though. We really do constantly change. I am not There's aspects of me that are the same from when I was a teenager, when I was 18, when I was in my
Mhm.
20s. But I am not that person. And we look back and go, "Oh, I would have made these choices." And part of that is experience, right? We say, "Oh, well, I would have made this choice instead of that choice." So, if we were living our life again in our 30s that we lived in our 20s, we'd have completely different outcomes because we've learned from experiences and different things. So choices wouldn't have been the same that they were then, because it's interesting to think about that though. And how would, but we can get stuck in that loop too of, well, if I would have known then my life would have been this. And so um, but we aren't, we're not the same people. We might have some same aspects, but we're constantly changing who we are, and we're constantly adapting as we learn and as we grow. Uh, and so this is something that you can kind of constantly go back to
Mhm.
and re-examine. And so it's really beautiful that you put those experiences out there, for other people to know that they're not alone in going through these experiences. It's a lot of fun. I'm super excited to look at your other books.
Yes, I definitely want to get them like Kindleized because I tried my best with that one and I did not think I did very well, if I'm being honest. So, I am working on, which it is so hard to edit this stuff. Like, I just thought you could just put it in and it would just like reformat, and you can't, and it's a big pain in the butt. So, I am working to get it like Kindleized just so I can get it out there because not everyone wants to spend $10 on a book, and I completely understand that. And I just wanted to, if I always tell my family, like when I first started writing this stuff, and I was like, if I can help one person and make that one person realize that they did not experience this alone, then I've done my job as a writer. And even with I have my new book right next to me, The Princess Who Touched the Spindle. It's a Sleeping Beauty kind of, I don't know if you've read like any of Sarah J. Maas's books. So it's kind of that vibe of fantasy, but I turned it into a journey through my mental health because a few years ago it was very, very much at a low point. And after reading Silver Flames by Sarah J. Maas, it kind of helped me get back on this journey of healing myself. So it's kind of like even with her books, like with, of course she's like a huge writer, but
Yeah.
like her books like changed my life. And if I just can help one person realize that they're not alone, then that makes it worth it.
And if I'm remembering correctly, and I could be wrong, but if I'm remembering correctly, Silver Flame is the one that in an interview Sarah J. Maas said was like her healing journey in that
Mhm.
as
Yeah.
well. And so it's interesting that it also spurred your healing journey. Um, but you're not alone in that, because I've heard other people state that as well. And it's something that I've spoken on with one of my best friends. Their healing journey started, um, and was, it didn't start because of that book, but that book helped them through it.
Mhm.
And then after they went through that book and realizing like that's how I was feeling about this or that, they pointed out that interview to me
Mhm.
and said, "See, I knew there was something different about this book because in the series it kind of that." And you hear a lot of people go, "What's up with this book? It's not the same, it's
Mhm.
different." And it's different because she was going through that healing process.
Right.
And so it kind of throws that wrench in there, and that's why. And that was I'm horrible with names, but
Yes.
Ness's journey, um and her kind of coming to terms with who she was and who she actually wanted to be.
Right. And that's what I like to talk. I like to talk about that like in my books where like my second book, The Princess Who Became a Queen, that one it's like Cinderella, Rapunzel kind of themes behind it. So I used that really bad relationship I was in and just kind of spun it around into a fairy tale of, I was being locked in the tower, the prince turned into a pumpkin, that kind of scenario. So I like to incorporate that healing throughout the books too, where I'm kind of like, this this shit happened to me and this is how I got through it and this is how I was feeling during that time. And I know, especially as women or anyone has dealt with, being in a very bad relationship, whether it was emotional or physical, or even in the new book, like everyone has had depression. And I talk about like how I turned my depression into this monster, which I kind of talk about in the first book, but like I made it into this thing because it's all like mental health is and that kind of stuff is always going to be there. Like I'm not going to get rid of it, but I now know how to improve myself. And, even with Silver Flames, like she talks about that, how, she's accepted the darkness and this is how who she is.
Yeah.
And this is what she now does to heal herself. Like I kind of relate to Nesta's journey where I used alcohol for like to make myself happy. But then when I would drink and then you would just get back into that state of depression and it would just be a constant cycle. So then I stopped drinking alcohol right around the time I started writing my third book. Just because I was like, you break that cycle, and that's what she talks about in Silver Flames too, is just breaking the cycle.
Yeah, and it really is just a human experience because we've all, I guess I shouldn't generalize, but I don't personally know of anyone who hasn't at one point or another, that is an adult at least, self-medicated
Right.
to help us get through something, to even, even if you're just having, if you're not using alcohol all the time, but you just come home and you had a really rough day and you're struggling with getting yourself to relax a little bit, and so you have your beer or your wine, that's self-medicating.
Hmm.
Even though if you don't go to an extreme with it, and you're not, an alcoholic, you can still be self-medicating using those things. Or, if you go to your CBD gummy or something to help yourself relax when you can't, it's still, um, and so we've all gone through those struggles where we didn't know what else to do. We're just go, but we know we need to calm down, and so we've had to kind of come to that. And so it it's a journey that we can all relate to at least a little bit, that healing and learning, you know
Right.
what are we doing to cope, and how can we do this better, and what can we do better to, um but I love how all of your books are like different areas of your life, but they're all a journey. And I love that you tie in your love of fantasy into your poems and into your world, because it does make a huge part of who you are. And so adding that in there um also allows us to expand our mind a little bit. So one of the things with fantasy is, they've done studies where people who read fiction and fantasy novels tend to have better empathy,
Hmm.
because you're better at putting yourself in somebody else's shoes and an imagined scenario.
Okay.
Whereas if you read nothing but nonfiction, you're not imagining anything.
Mhm.
You're just reading facts.
Right.
And so adding that fantasy world into your poetry and your lived experience, I think is what helped me be able to relate it where I can talk. Helped me be able to relate it to my lived experience a little bit better because, I can remember when I felt like it was like I was being stabbed in the heart. And I can remember what it felt like when I was being burned alive by an experience that I went through. And it just, and that pain and realizing that, um, you know, I have a darkness and what I'm capable of and because that's a thing that you touched on too with the Silver Flame book, um, and your explanation is realizing your own darkness. That's something we all have. We all have a shadow aspect, a side of us that does things or is willing to do things that we wouldn't normally do, or that we don't really want to do, and coming to terms of how do we accept that, how do we work with it, how do we work around it so that we're not falling prey to it,
Right.
essentially.
And
And
and I used the newest book. Sorry, a bird just flew at my window.
oh,
Um
poor
that's
bird, I hope it's okay.
that scared me. Um oh
i
no,
can,
no,
I
it's
can imagine that would have made me jump.
I was like, what the hell? But with the my newest book, I kind of go into like CBT therapy with it because I did therapy I just more wanted the techniques of when I'm feeling this way, what can I do? And I kind of talk about that in my newest book where, I'm talking to the darkness and I'm saying, I don't remember the full quote. I probably should have marked it, but basically I'm saying my feelings and it's saying, okay, well, who said that? And I said, no one, just me. And it's kind of saying, with CBT, I learned no one is telling you this. You think that. Like no one is saying, I hate you. You're a bad daughter. You're a bad girlfriend. No one is saying that. You yourself are thinking that, and that's how you need to learn how to turn that around. And I sometimes do that now where I'm like, oh, this person's mad at me. I'm such a shitty person where I'm like, okay, no, let's backtrack. You're not a shitty person. No one said that to you. Why do you feel this way? And in my books, I kind of talk about like, okay, I feel A, now let's fix it and turn it into B and that kind of thing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I often say that, so I do tarot readings.
Mhm.
I've been doing that for somewhere around 25 years. And um, we always, when I'm at the Renaissance Fair, everyone in the booth, we call it the cheapest therapy session you'll ever get. Uh, and one of the things that I tell people often, when they find themselves cycling through things and they're like, how do I get out of this cycle? And one of the things I'm always telling them well, what are you telling yourself? What are the things you say to yourself?
Mhm.
And, they always come back with these horrific things that they think and believe about themselves. And then I'm like, so remember that what anybody else could ever say to you is almost never as bad as what you're telling yourself.
Correct.
We are so much harder on ourselves than anyone else could ever be. And we tear ourselves apart internally so much. It's absolutely insane. And then I try to so then the next thing I do is do you have a pet? A cat, a dog, a pet? And they're like, yeah. I say, so do you ever talk to them the way that you talk to yourself? And they, well, no, I would never do that. Okay, start talking to yourself like you talk to your pet.
Oh, that's good.
What? And it's hard. It's hard.
Hmm.
Um, it feels absolutely ridiculous. It's something that I struggle with doing too, but something that I've been trying to do the last like 3 years when I had the idea, was about 3 years ago. And I may have gotten it from something else I seen or somebody else I talked to, and there's a good chance I saw it scrolling on Instagram, but I don't remember the source of where this information came from. Um, it might have been my own brain. It might have been inspired by something else. I don't know. But it does. It feels really ridiculous when you're like, no, you're a good person in the mirror and talking to yourself like the way you would try to talk to your dog and encourage your dog to do something good, or when you did something that was fun or exciting, like when I remember to stretch, because I don't know anyone who's ever seen a dog stretch and didn't go, oh, good stretch.
Yeah.
So like I try to do that for myself now when I'm a remember and I'm like doing this and I'm like, oh, good stretch,
Stretch.
like, like it's like if you don't say it when a dog does it, like, are you even human? Like,
Yeah, no, I say that to my dogs all the time. I'm like, that's a good stretch. And they're like,
so it's like little things like that because I know I need to stretch. So maybe if I praise myself for doing it a little bit, I might do it more often. And so that's something I've kind of tried to incorporate in what you were talking on. Like the things we say to ourselves are just we're mean when we talk about ourselves to ourselves.
and then it's taken me a while to accept where, I had this pressure. I talk about it a little bit in the first book, but I mention it a lot in the latest book that after my brother passed, I put that burden on myself to be the oldest sibling, to be the perfect sibling, and to basically, from a young age, I've been on the go and wanting to be this perfect person until I just hit rock bottom. It was like right after college, right after my first like big girl job. And I was like, I can't, if I keep going at this level, I'm gonna die, basically. And I realized where I'm like, I can't keep putting all this stress and all this pressure on myself. When people aren't putting it on me, I'm doing it myself. Like, no, my parents never said, you need to be the perfect person. I did that. And, society never said you need to. I wanted to be in politics. That's what I got my degree in college. And I was like, I'm going to move to DC and I'm going to do this and I'm going to, be the youngest congresswoman, that kind of thing. And I put all that pressure on myself to be perfect. I'm like, I am not perfect. And it took me a while to realize that no one is perfect. Everyone has their flaws, and I can't keep putting unnecessary pressure on myself like that.
Yeah, it's amazing what traumatic experiences will do to us and how we all respond so differently. But just feeling that loss could at such a young age too. And like that's just not an easy thing in general, but when you're young, you don't fully understand it and it's amazing how long it will affect you.
Right.
You
And
know,
he passed in like 2021 or 2001. So, I mean, it's been however many years, and it took me up until basically, I think that book to kind of heal myself and kind of accept. I think it's a apology letter to him where, I'm like, I'm sorry we never got to have this brother-sister relationship, and we never got to be Ross and Rachel, and that's just how it is, you know. It could be a lot worse, and my that was kind of like my feelings. It took that long to kind of just accept it, where, he's not coming back, and you know, I don't know if there's heaven or not or anything like that, but like he's here in spirit, and that was just my like I'm sorry to him that we never got to have that kind of life together.
Yeah. And doing letters like that can really help with traumatic experiences and different things. And uh, I've definitely done that where I've written, a letter to my younger self about, I'm sorry I didn't help you through this. I didn't know how to do it then, but I can do it for you now. And so just kind of going through it and figuring out like and reminding ourselves that, we didn't know what we didn't know, but now, now we're there and we can be there for that younger version of ourselves that isn't healed yet to help it heal, and give that younger version a safe space. Because while we do change and while we're constantly changing and constantly evolving, or you know you know as a phoenix would, we're burning ourselves to the ground and rebuilding. Part of that process and part of our ability to rebuild and become that phoenix is by healing that previous version. And so we heal that previous version, a new version is born, and then we heal the next. And every time we heal, we become someone new,
Hmm.
and someone better, because we're growing and we're learning, we're adapting, and we're giving ourselves more space to be there for our loved ones by healing those past versions of ourselves. And so it's such a beautiful journey, as even though it's hard and it's a struggle, and it's really comforting to be able to pick up a book and know that you're not alone. Because oftentimes when we're in that struggle and in that trauma, we just feel so alone.
Hmm. It exactly. And I at the time, like, I did feel alone in certain scenarios of my life where, none of my other friends, no, they all have their siblings and things like that, where I'm like, no one can relate to how I feel in this moment. And I went through that for so long until I just had to get it out there in this book, where I was like, I felt alone for however many years, but whoever reads this, they don't have to feel alone. And even if it's not just losing a sibling, or it's like they could relate it to losing a parent or a grandparent or a best friend, or even just grief in general, like that's just such a human experience that everyone has. Like we can all be different religions or cultures or anything like that, but like that's just the one thing that we as humans always can come together of, is everyone has experienced some form of grief in their life. And that's kind of what it like inspired me to write that book, was to tell the people you're not alone in all these different things that have happened in my journey.
Yeah. And not just, grief because a loved one passed, but we also have to kind of grieve the old versions of ourselves that we're trying to let go of, as we're growing. Like there's a sadness to healing, because you sit with it for so long, and now you're as you're healing, you're releasing a lot of that trauma and a lot of that pain, and there's a sadness that comes with that, as weird as that may sound, because
Mhm.
when, even if it's not necessarily good for you, when you're in a relationship,
Right.
um, with something for, or someone for so long, and we we do kind of become in a relationship with the way we feel about our experiences. And when we finally learn to heal from those traumatic experiences, we have to, in order to fully heal and fully grow, we have to let it go.
Hmm.
And in letting that version of ourselves go, that part of us is dying. And so we need to grieve it a little bit, and so that we can fully heal. And that's part of the process of healing, is grieving who you used to be, so that you can finally let go to become who you want to be.
Right.
And it's a part of the process that I think a lot of us forget.
Hmm. I agree. I think you just said everything beautifully.
Oh, thank you.
Yes.
So, you have 3 books out. So it's the princess who becomes a phoenix,
Mhm.
the princess who becomes a queen,
And
and
then the princess who touched the spindle.
princess who touched the spindle. And so these are the all of these are poetry books, and all of them speak to different journeys that you're on throughout your lived experience,
Mhm.
and different aspects of your healing journey.
Yes.
And um that's that's just a really cool, like, it's actually very swift of you, Taylor,
That's it's
of you.
it's funny because the second book I once Taylor like really said she was gonna release, I think it was during midnight, and she released it on my birthday. And I was in the process of editing this book, and I just put like 900% into editing this book so I can release it the same day. Because I'm like, she's releasing this album on my birthday. I have to release this book on my birthday with this album, because it kind of like the I didn't know it at the time, but the album kind of went along with the book and how I was feeling too, and kind of the themes that she talked about. I was like, are we the same person? Like, did she know? And it kind of goes along with the book, especially because she has like, I think it's her Bejeweled song. It's kind of like Cinderella-y. At least the music video is, and that's who I based the second book off of, was all the different Cinderella themes in the original book about it. And I was like, oh my gosh, we're like the same person, Taylor.
Well, it's interesting how much we can relate to people we've never actually met, because so many of our experiences are so close and so similar.
Right.
We've all gone through the heartbreak of a first love, and we've all gone through, losing a pet or a loved one, and we've all gone through, you know, school, and we, are having to change schools, even if it was just changing, from elementary to middle to high school, and you weren't changing in between. You've still had to change schools and start with new people, and you know so there's so many of our experiences that are the same, but all of us have a different relationship to that experience. And some of us really relate to certain stories, and they speak to us, um, even if they speak to us slightly differently. And so a lot of your experiences are probably similar to what she went through.
Mhm.
And both of you probably really do relate to that Cinderella character.
And I hope she sees this and then we become
Yeah.
best friends. Even though I'm sorry, I'm a Jaguar fan, but I cannot stand the Chiefs. I'm sorry, I have to put it out there. Love you, Taylor, but I cannot stand your fiance on the field. I'm sorry. I hope she doesn't see that part.
Well, most of his fans can't stand her, which I'm like,
I'm like, she's not doing anything.
I never understood why they got so mad that she would be at the football games. I'm like, if she wasn't, you'd be mad because she wasn't supporting her boyfriend. There-
Taylor Swift just like breathes, and people are like, "How dare you do that?" And she's just like, "I'm doing nothing."
it's a woman taking up space.
It
She has no apologies for it.
it's
And
like a man does it, and everyone's like, "Oh my
reality,
gosh, he's here for his girlfriend," and you're like, "She's doing the
yeah,
same thing, people."
yeah. It's absolutely crazy how we react to that, like, or
I don't
why it
NFL fans are
matters. What
crazy, but
I never got on the I have to know what my favorite celebrity is doing and what their people will be like, oh, did you hear did so and so are together now and so and I'm like, who cares?
right.
But I never understood that. I'm more like maybe that's why I do the podcast the way I'm like, so what inspired that? Let's
Mhm.
dig into your brain. Let's figure out why you think the way you think. I want to talk about that. Like, I don't care what you're doing, like
Right.
who you're with or what you're dating. Like, I want to know how your brain works.
I want to know how her brain works because she's crazy. I love her. Like the
That
things that she comes out
that
with,
would be
where I'm like now someone posted that I guess on October 3rd, Clarabow went to like a psychiatric facility back, in whenever the 20s, 30s, and it was on October 3rd. And she's releasing her new album on October 3rd. And I'm like, is Taylor Swift God? I'm like, who? I'm like, how does she do this? Like, how do you know this stuff?
yeah.
She just like plants things.
Well, she's obviously very smart. She's
Oh,
obviously very business savvy, whether people want to admit it or not. The woman has made millions and she's not relied on anybody to do it.
no.
So it's um, you know, but yeah, getting to pick her brain would be insane. She's probably got 600,000 tabs open.
Mhm.
I'm like, how do you get anything done?
She's
Well, at this point, she can hire enough people to help her.
yeah, right.
But like, I aspire to be able to afford a calendar for my desktop to make things easier for me, which is about $10, but that's where
Mhm.
I'm at right now. I'm like, can I fit that in the budget this month yet?
You're just like, I need this.
I know, and it seems silly, but when you have move halfway across the country, and I'm like, it's gonna take me a minute before I can get those little things that don't seem like a luxury, but feel like a luxury right now.
Like me and my boyfriend, I currently live with my parents just because rent is expensive and they are fine with it. And they are just like, save your money, save your money. And I even said that to him. I'm like, save our money and we will buy a house and then hopefully, I don't know what the economy is doing right now with that, but manifesting, I'm like, I'll take a haunted house at this point.
You can get that. One of my dreams is to buy like an old church and just live in it because they're so pretty.
They are pretty.
There's enough space that I could actually make a library like this. So
Hmm.
like that would be like my dream. So
You might find one.
like, oh,
Might be a little haunted, but it's fine.
yeah, I'm okay. I'm okay with that. I can. I
I'm
don't
like,
have to see them. They don't take up much space.
yeah, I'm like, just don't like
I,
do things.
I've
Like,
had
don't
worse
leave
roommates.
water on. That's all I ask.
Yeah. I probably had worse roommates in college. Um,
100%.
But yeah, it's insane how expensive things are getting and how I remember when I first moved to Texas, my rent was like $900 a month for a two-bedroom apartment, and by the time I left 10 years later, it was over 2000.
That's basically, I think, what it is. I live in North Florida, so that's I think around that. I think 2,500 is like the normal for renting.
Yeah.
And that's why my parents were like, you can stay here. This is fine.
Yeah.
And I'm like, well,
So,
that
and
is
if
also
you think
fine.
about it, like, so $50,000 a year, which when I was in high school, like if you made $50,000 a year, you were making good money. And a
Mhm.
lot of people still think like, oh, that's good money. $50,000 a year would only cover, by the time the taxes came out of my check, it only covered rent.
Right.
Like it's like I think once the taxes come out, and that depends on the state because that depends on whether you have state taxes or not and federal taxes that come out or not. Um, but you only end up with like just over 2000 a month off of that.
My
Um,
friends want me, my friend
so
wanted
it's
me to
crazy.
move to Philly a few years ago, and I was like, girl, I'm not paying that state tax. I'll
Yeah.
take Florida and, the people who marry their alligators here. I'm like, I'll take that.
Oh, yeah,
Unfortunately.
it's it can be rough. Like, um, yeah. So Texas didn't have a state tax. California does. Uh, but I will say, public transportation in California 100 times better than it is in anywhere in Texas that I went. Like I don't need a car here,
Nice.
but I did have to have a car there.
Hmm.
Um, because buses run like every 15 minutes and at most you transfer maybe twice.
Okay, that's not
You can
bad.
go through the whole county for eh, like on 3 bus transfers. And I can cover from Arizona all the way to the Pacific Ocean, and I only have to take 3 buses.
Oh, you know what? That's not bad.
So, like public transportation here is insane. Like it's almost like I guess it would be like the subway in New York, like from Jersey to Philly to New York,
Mhm.
and being able to do all of that, except for there's nothing underground. It's all buses instead of trains. Although
Okay.
there is a train like LA has a really good train station
Mhm.
that you can and subway station that you can take through most of LA that does have a train that comes all the way to Southern California. So you could take the train from LA down to San Diego and then hop on a bus, like a tour bus, and go to Tijuana for the day and then go back home on
Eh,
the train.
can't do that in Florida.
Yeah. So you can't do stuff like that in Texas, at least nothing that I could find either. And I lived in Austin, but the public transportation was horrible. So
Yeah, I wouldn't recommend doing that in Jacksonville. So I drive.
yeah, I when I was in Texas, I drove everywhere too, and like, but there's like I can walk to the grocery store. Everything is walkable here.
There you go. You get your steps in.
Yeah, it's great. Um, I did like Austin a lot, but I don't know. There's some things about California that I really love. There's some things about Austin and Texas that I miss. So, but everything has its ups and downs.
Exactly. And that's just life.
Yeah. It's it's what your books are all about.
Exactly.
So, this has been so much fun and I'm looking forward to getting more of your poems and reading your next two poetry books. Because I really did have a lot of fun reading this first one. And I'm so excited that we get to share it with everybody and help get it out there. And I'm looking forward to your next one after this and the
Yes,
next.
it is in process. It's not part of like the princessy thing. So this one is more of a Greek mythology aspect to
Ooh,
it. So my
nice.
favorite couple in Greek mythology is Eros and Psyche. They are, in my opinion, the first love story and kind of like the only happy ending. Like I'm a huge nerd. I have like a whole Greek mythology section there, and
Nice.
they're like the only happy ending. And I started writing that just on and off. And then when I started dating my current boyfriend, and I was like, holy shit, this is us. And relating that back to our relationship and relating that back to the mythology. So that's currently what's in process. He keeps making the joke that the book is going to be like 500 pages because I just keep writing things and sending it to him. And he's like, when are you done with this? I'm like, never.
Um, so are you one of the authors that I met through Lauren
Lauren.
Sorensen?
Um, I don't think so. Maybe.
Okay. Okay. So she's the first indie author interview that I've done. So if you go to the YouTube channel and you check out that interview, it's mostly about her book, The Reluctant Star, which is a modern day retelling of the Eros and Psyche story.
I have to check that out.
And I wish it wasn't packed with all of my books, which is another reason why I don't. I used to have a really pretty bookshelf with all my books and all my indie author collection that
And
from
now it's just in boxes.
interviews. And yeah, now it's my grandma's closet because is in the dining room where I was able to move this setup into the dining room because it was in the bedroom, but my dog kept trying to knock the computer over. So I'm like, I have to move it.
Hmm.
So so yeah, now her closet is behind me and I'll figure something out differently. But all of my books are in storage right now.
Oh no, I would cry.
Um I'll it's so sad because I was like, I want this book, and I'm like I wanted to reread one of my favorite books and I couldn't because it's in storage, and I was like, ah. So I got it on audiobook and I'm like, I can at least listen to it.
You're like, I have you here in spirit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely have to check that out.
Yeah, so I would love to show it to you. I'll put it on the screen in edit. But Lauren Sorensen, The Reluctant Star, and I'll send you a link for it and everything. And it's just a novella. I think she does plan on turning it into a full-length novel, but right now it's just a novella, but it's a lot of fun to read.
Yeah,
And,
I definitely
and
can't wait to read it.
a modern day retelling of Eros and Psyche. So, um, yeah, I love when I get to find ways to connect like the authors that I talk to together. I'm
You're so,
like,
so you should read this book.
yeah. Um, but this has been so much fun. I have to go because I gotta start getting food ready and dinner for the dogs and take them for their last walk and everything.
Yeah, you can't have them rebel on you.
Oh no, I definitely don't need that. I've got a pit bull and a husky, and the last thing I want is either of them rebelling against me.
I have a pit bull too, so I understand that. If she doesn't get fed at like 5:30, then she's just like,
It's then
food.
it's the end of the world.
Yeah.
So that was the pit bull that was guarding us from the mailman earlier.
Okay. I hope they
Um,
did a good job.
no, the door was closed, so the mail slots out front of the door. So he just heard someone, but um,
Aw.
it's he- he's very very protective of my grandma. It's hilarious. He's
Aw, that's
um
cute.
when she tries to get up and get from the bed to the wheelchair, she struggles a little bit. She has a lot of pain in one of her legs, and he just watches her like a hawk. And if
Aw.
she falls, he starts getting up like he's gonna be able to help her.
He's like the Mrs. Doubtfire. Help is on the way, dear.
Yeah.
It's so cute.
I'm not sure if he plans on coming to get me or like what his plan is, but I'll see him like when she kind of teeters a little bit or something, he'll go,
He's like, I will help you.
yeah. And so
Oh,
he's very protective of her. It's the cutest thing in the world. Um, but that's a pity for you.
that is very true. They look
Pick their person,
like
and
they're
that's everywhere.
yeah.
I'm just glad he follows her around. She has a little motorized scooter that she rides around on, and he follows her around
Aw,
her, and I'm
hey.
just glad she hasn't managed to run his feet over.
Sure, he's gonna be glad about that too.
I'm sure he's happy about it too. But it's funny.
And thank you again for this opportunity.
Oh, you're welcome. I know I've said bye probably 3 times, haven't I? I'm so tired. I've
I'm really bad. I talk a lot, so I come from like a really big Jewish family, and I've just been brought up to like argue and talk a lot. So
Yeah. Um,
like sometimes
yeah,
people have to like pull me
I'm
out of it.
doing a part-time job. I'm still running Books, Brews, and Dogs out in Texas, through a friend. Plus, I'm still doing the interviews. I'm taking care of two of my grandparents and the dogs, and I had to just pick up a part-time job, which I started last week because my business license hasn't come through. So I'm surprised I'm still awake.
Well, go relax with your dogs. Go cuddle with them before they
Thank you
rebel.
so much, Hayley. It's been
Sure.
such a pleasure
Yeah.
talking with you. Thank you so much for putting your art out there and your words and your stories and yourself into those stories. It has been such a joy reading
Oh, thank
that,
you.
kind of getting to know your experience through your art form. And I'm so looking forward to more from you.
Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And I appreciate everything you do for indie authors.
Oh, thank you. And right before we go real quick, because I forgot,
Mhm.
what is the best way for them to purchase your books? Is it through Amazon
It
or
is through Amazon. I know people don't like Amazon, which I completely understand that. And, you know, F you, Jeff Bezos. But it is also, I just want to put it out there, it is also important to support your indie authors. I tried for years to get my stuff published traditionally, did not work out. And that's why I went through the self-publishing area back in 2021 just because I was like, this is ridiculous at this point. I can't keep being told no. Let me just put it out there. So I know Amazon sucks, but support your indie authors. You know, get some Amazon gift cards and then it's free.
yeah.
At least
And
that's what I tell myself.
yeah, it is unfortunately one of the easier routes for indie authors to be able to get a book published.
Right.
So sometimes it is, but they also make it so it's the only way to buy those books oftentimes. So, um, but you do what you have to do in order to be able to be true to yourself and get your artwork out
And
there. And
I do know, sorry, my brain was just like ah.
you're
With my first two books, those are also on Barnes and Noble too. Not in
okay.
stores for some. I've tried getting them in stores, but it's something with the whole Amazon thing that they can't have them in stores. I don't understand any of that.
Yeah,
But
the
they are available
ISI
on.
work and how Amazon owns them is weird.
Yeah, it's something because they were like, well, it was published this way, so then we can't have it in store. And I was like, I don't understand any of this.
Yeah, a lot of the authors that I've spoken to have talked about that when they've published with Amazon, how it just is weird because
Yeah.
some of their books they were able to share, some of them they weren't, and it turned into like a whole thing.
So if we don't want to support Jeff Bezos, understandable, you can purchase my first two books on barnesandnoble.com.
Excellent. And I will put all of that information and the links up there and above us. And again, Hayley, and I think for the last time this time, thank you so much for
Yeah,
joining,
of course, thank you.
giving me the opportunity to talk with you. Um, and I'm really excited for what's coming next and what you're going to bring to us next. So thank you so much.
Course. And if people want to follow my poetry account, it is Hayley Nicole Poetry, Hayley, then Nicole Poetry on Instagram. That is my new fully focused poetry account.
Excellent. And I'll make sure to have that up there as well.
Awesome.
So,
Thank you
all
again.
right. Thank you so much. And hopefully we'll get to talk again and do
Yes,
this again
definitely.
when you finish that next
No,
one.
not you. Thank you. You have a nice day.
Thanks. You too. Bye, Hayley.
Bye.
Bye.